sort of heard about the Faces, and then there was nothing about them for a long time until Rod Stewart.
It was a shame, really, because, you know, I really, really, really did rate Steve Marriott. You know, he was, when they first started, he could play about 2 chords on the guitar, but the whole thing that they built up on stage, they got one record out, What You Gonna Do About It? And they went on stage and they were really, really, they had all the fire, you know. They were really exciting. Probably more, as exciting or even more exciting than the who had just been around a little while at that time, you know, when they had the Union Jacks on the Vox equipment and all that. And they were really fine. And things like Itchy-Coo Park and Tin Soldier, really good things, you know. And then and they went through all the old crap, and I don't know what they did.
What about Ogden's Nut on Flag, the album? What do you think of that?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. I thought they were good. But nowadays, old Stevie Marriott went off to do something else. It's a pity, really, because they did all mix well musically. You know, they did. And being all the same size as well, you just go...
Can we crate this back to London or what?
Yeah, there's a few too many in here for me to quite get a grip on.
That's an amazing one.
Actually, these are really old things. You want to scrap these quick.
Yeah, send them back.
Have you heard any Australian music? What do you hear? Australian bands at all?
We've seen a fantastic television show.
What, New Faces?
New Faces, yeah. If that sums up the Teresa Brewer, if that sums up the what's going on, you know.
I'll see you guys later.
See you in a bit.
Bye.
Farewell.
What about people like Cat Stevens, Robert? Do you go for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think he's quite good.
Anybody
Very
else
good.
in that similar vein? Sort of the old...
Have you heard Roy Harper? No. Have you heard that album, the last album, Crumbs? Stormcock. That was his last album, and that was...
You did, that's something that him on the last album?
Hats Off to Harper.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's... God, blimey.
Oh, so yeah, let's carry on with the thing and we're interrupting.
Yeah, Harper's an amazing character all round. He was in the RAF for about 9 years. He learned to play snooker with both hands and discharged himself. He was insane in the end. But he's upset. He's gone on the BBC and really said things he's not supposed to say and all that about it. Well, here I am in the middle of everything I hate, man, and I don't really know whether it's there, but it's cool and everybody listening will understand. And it beep, bleep, bleep, you know, get him off. But he does create some amazing music.
How about you doing 3.5 hours concert? When did you start doing that? After the second album was released?
No, all the time.
Really? From the very beginning?
We weren't doing 3 hours solid at the beginning, were we? Because like the early days we were doing 2 sets and that.
Oh,
film
crikey, yeah.
But the thing was, as we got more material together, we didn't want to sling anything out, and it just kept growing.
Listen, your first trip out here, Jim, I saw you when the Yardbirds, when you came here the first time. What were your impressions of the place the very first trip you came out here? If you remember back that far.
Well, I just enjoyed it, you know, it's just a big loon for me. I wasn't really looking at it in any sort of social sense at all, you know.
I know as soon as you got up on stage then and you said to the crowd at the stadium, remember that old ramshackle
yeah,
place?
that was great there, actually, had a really fine atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah,
really.
You got out and you did the bit with the bow on the guitar at that stage, and that was, you know, the whole audience had never seen anything like it before in the country. The thing was just incredible. Were you doing it long before that, before you joined the Yardbirds?
Well, not really, because I was doing session work before that. I did 1 session with it, but it never got released. But once I joined the Yardbirds, I started doing it. I don't think anybody else was doing it just at that particular time.
The group broke up after Happenings 10 years time ago, and that was the last sort of record.
No. Oh, yes, probably with Jeff Beck, yes. But the group that you saw over here was one that was just the remainder.
Otherwise, McCartney was
just 4 of us instead of 5. It had always been a 5-man group up to that point.
Yeah.
And we recorded with Mickey Most. The less said about that, the better.
Why is that? Because I mean,
because he just
permanent. He's pretty successful, sort of like that.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that Herman and Yardbirds aren't really in the same sort of bag, really, are they? But no, he really messed it up. You see, we had an LP to do, and we finished it in about 10 hours, I think. So much so that we had a pianist in, Stu, who was the road manager for the Rolling Stones, and he still plays on their records even now. And we did 2 blues things. And We didn't even hear the playback of the first number that we did. He said, all right, straight on to the next one, straight on. And old Stu just couldn't believe it. He said, I've never worked like this in my life. So there you go.
Sounds like Johnny Dankworth that's coming up to this Adelaide Festival and Cleo Lane. Do they still pull a young following?
No. No, I don't think so, no.
Older group.
Yeah, it's more of a cabaret type thing, I should imagine, for the main part. I mean, Johnny Dankworth's written some really good stuff, you know, really fine stuff. But nowadays, I think that kids are really moving towards something with a little bit of life in it, you know. And Cleo Lane's had life.
Well, I guess they're just starting to discover the fact that Cleo Lane in Australia has a voice. You know, people have just heard about it vaguely, but we've heard a lot of English records.
Yeah, right.
I was just wondering whether there was any kind of return at all to that.
Not really, no.
You mentioned before, Jim, the Stones. What do you think of, say, a lot of people reckon that Jagger's gone beyond the thing of a pop star to a sort of a cult hero, and the music is sort of suffering because of this. Do you think that's right?
Well, I don't know really. He seems to have got in with the jet set scene. I really don't know what he's doing.
See, we
And I
have
don't know how you relate that to a cult hero.
Oh, the way he sort of, you know, made it to Newsweek covers and stuff, and
made it to.
well, I mean, you know,
Well, I never
you mean
knew what-
reached it?
what I think
Every man to appear upon.
when he had his Catholic marriage, I think
What about this
Okay,
movie
that then.
performance? Have you cited that at all?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
It's good.
That's really good. Haven't you seen that here
Yeah,
yet?
a bit of an Alex.
It ain't, is it? Oh, it's fine. It's really fine. It's a pity they ban things like that. They ban Uncle Dirty and Wild Man Fisher and all that. What they don't know is that they can ban it. It's not the filth they got to worry about, you know.
Yeah, but it's the intelligence of the guys who are there to ban them, you see.
Yeah.
We have to change it then, won't you?
Yes, we'll help you do that. Just don't mention our names.
Did you like the Stands last album?
Stick fingers.
Yeah, that was alright. There's some good things on it actually. Yeah,
Any particular Stone stuff that you like?
Beggar's Banquet I really like.
that was a good one.
Sympathy?
Well, yeah, the whole thing really, or most of it, was really good. You know, that's where the faces come in. You see, that sort of sound. You know, the Stay With Me is like a little bit like that. You know what I mean? Right, they sort of rocking along thing, which the Stones have been doing for quite a while. And Chuck Berry even did it.
Like a boogie type film.
I always liked Satanic Majesty's Request because that was more or less the last complete one with Brian Jones, wasn't it? Or was it not? I don't know. But it was a good one. It was at a time when it was fashionable to put them down.
A lot of people
And
accuse the
everybody
Stones
sort of...
following Pepper and being on the heels of the Beatles with the electronic freak-out sort of thing when they got into Satanic Majesty. They seemed to follow a track. The Beatles would do something and they'd sort of...
I'm sure they'd be the first to admit it too.
Well,
They did seem to sort of follow in what the Beatles would
Do
do.
you find that lyrics are pretty important with what you're doing now? Like yesterday you said that people said that I was a millionaire, but I'd spent more than a millionaire.
Ah, well, that's a bit. That I would never. I love that song. If you has Howling Wolf got any records out over here?
Yeah, there's a Howling Wolf's London sessions. I think.
Oh yeah, well forget that. And
Up
go.
on Cheshire, man.
Yeah, right. There's an LP in England called Going Down Slow, and those are the lyrics off Going Down Slow. Please write, Mama, tell her the shape I'm in. Tell her to pray for me, forgive me for my sins. Yeah. They had those chest sounds were so fine, you know, the recordings, the riffs, you know, the whole feel of the thing, and Howling Wolf's voice, you know, and everybody's just, well, Smokestack and Spoonful, You'll Be Mine, even Mark Bolan's pinching bits of it there, you know, that You're So Sweet, and all that's Howling Wolf, you know.
Yeah, sure.
It ends up into,
Bolan's music, the T-Rex stuff now.
well, if anything, I reckon it's better than before, except for the lyrics have suffered terribly. You know, but then again, I say he's filling a gap that a lot of people have declined to associate themselves with for a long time. You know, and you've got a lot of kids who don't really want to look at David Cassidy or whatever his name is, you know. And old Bolan comes along with a few sequins and takes over.
I reckon there's sort of a mini phenomenon now in England with sort of T-Rex and Slade, all are sort of battling it out.
Oh no, Slade I've known for years and years. They lived not far from me, and I don't think they could ever take over anything. They're really great blokes, you know, but I don't know.
I reckon Noddy Holder's got a pretty sort of incredible way of insulting his audience to almost...
Yeah, well, he's always been doing that, and he's never been cool to do it before.
since Whole Lotta Lovin', do you think that you've really, set off deliberately in another direction to get away from that type of delivery, or?
No. You can't say direction is something that people can only talk about if they're not involved in it. You know, because the direction is really a strange word, in fact, when it comes to creation.
There's so many kids in a place like here, down here in Australia, we got these things a while after you put them out, that would hang so long on a thing like Whole Lotta Lovin', and they keep looking for something else that's going to, sort of vindicate their good, strong feelings, or something like that. Maybe it came up in that stomp.
Well, yeah, but what about Immigrant Song, The Hammer of the Gods?
Yeah, well, it tends that way.
The Hammer of the Gods,
Not as
oh.
far, doesn't it?
Man's Anatomy. Fine. It depends what you want to... I mean, a lot of people used to boogie to Whole Lotta Love, and I don't know what else. That record must have been a part of so many little scenes. But I'm sure we've...
It's a far out bit of what they're really, hoping to strain for, I think. They keep looking for that all the time. That echo, far distant, lost thing down inside a gust. Give us more of that, let's say.
Oh, but it's there, really, but it doesn't come necessarily electrically. Things like Friends on the third album I reckon, had as much bite, and it was just as, it got through just as easily.
It's a lot of things that are really obvious, that sort of hits them smack in the face, and they can grab hold of it, and they've got a pole to climb on straight away,
Yeah.
It's just the sort of thing, a lot of little kids say, what the hell are they?
When you were pretty much younger, when you were listening to radio and bopping around, what was a record that really got to you and had a special sort of, was something happened with you, a record that really stood out in your mind, say back in the rock era, or some record that's really grabbed you for some reason that was sort of really a personal thing to you? Was there any type of record you can remember like that stands out?
Oh, there were so many. From when I had a record player in 1960, and I was a lot younger than this then, and the first things I did was try and get the records that I'd only heard little bits of in the initiation stages, And I suppose it was the early Presley things were the things. The things that Lordy Miss Claudia and Trying to Get to You, and, I mean, we did Lordy Miss Claudia yesterday. It's just there was such a sound about it again. It was on a par with those chess recordings that Howlin' Wolf did it, It was a sound... Not on its own, but it had such a refreshing sound for white people to turn out at the time, when there was nothing else but Rosemary Clooney and...
What about the Carole King stuff of the early 60s, like We Used to Take Good Care of the Drifters Up on the Roof and gear like that? Did you get into that stuff?
Well, I did. Yeah, I really liked it. It Might As Well Rain Until September and things like that. And
I was still praying for Ricky Nelson and these people to keep it going.
Oh, I wasn't totally a softie though. It was just there was something about Bobby V's voice. I like to try and mimic people sometimes, and I find that the only way to do that is to roll your jaw from left to right at about 90 degrees. To sing Rubber Ball and things like that, more than I can say.
Well, the other day out at John's place, we were listening to that Bobby Darin thing.
Yeah, well, some of that.
The Mac the Knife.
Yeah, and off it came.
No, it came off there.
As soon as he got the Mac the
When he
Knife.
got to the old schmaltz, we took it off.
See, so many of those
off and
artists.
those things, and Splish Splash, they were all right at the time.
Did you ever dig Buffalo Springfield?
Oh yeah, very much so. All that group really, but really they were at the best when they were in Buffalo Springfield again, Rock and Roll Woman and things like that.
Bluebird, yes.
But if you're talking about West Coast music, have you heard of Moby Grape?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like them.
Did you get into that scene like around about 65 when the Birds came on and it all started to really roll?
That's it. That was when it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wasn't really doing too much at all, because being up in Birmingham, me and Bonham weren't the easiest blokes to sort of usher into a nightclub and be told to play what we've got to play. So we listened to sounds like that to get a bit of inspiration, along with Jerry Lee Lewis and all those people. But Moby Grape and Love, bits of them, not all of it, but a lot of it, did me the world of good.
I went to a concert in San Francisco last year to the home of West Coast rock and roll baby called the Family Dog. Have you played there?
No.
San Francisco. The resident group there's pretty wild arrangements. The Family Dog were playing with backing up the Who.
Mm.
That was unreal.
Was that last year?
Or 1970.
Yeah.
I should think.
Yeah, I saw Kaleidoscope there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were brilliant.
Really good.
At the Family Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you got an
It's the
album
best
called
group, it's
Beacon
one of
from
the
Mars?
best, most exciting groups
Yeah, one of
I ever
their
saw,
albums.
because
So many saxophones.
you just didn't know what they were going to play next. Each number was so different and the change of instruments, and they were so accomplished on the instruments too.
With the Who and the Family Dog, it was almost too much for the building, really.
Have you got plans to do anything like the Who did with Tommy, like a rock opera type thing, or are you just going to keep on?
Is it true that you
I don't know, who knows where you're going, I suppose, what do you think? We've got record-wise, we work about a year ahead, don't we? Or even 18 months ahead.
Yeah, we've got a lot of ideas that are turning around, a lot of Jimmy's ideas musically that could be built into amazing things, but I don't think that they could, be classed alongside a rock opera or anything like that, because
No.
they're another thing altogether. They look to be an amazing thing to get into, but it's just...
Almost too pretentious, maybe.
Well, I don't know, because you don't
It's
really
just
know
this
how they work.
classification thing. I mean,
You've got to find a slot for that.
I don't really know how to classify our stuff, and I'm playing it,
I guess it's almost, you look back at even the Tanzania fellas like Stan Kenton trying to find a place for their halls of brass thing, there was nowhere for it, right? 60 pieces of new sound, straining for something that there was no one
It's
else.
about you've said about the only name that I can relate to out of all those bands. He had
Well,
about 8 mental breakdowns, didn't he, trying to do all that?
You listen
He
to
was
Blood,
one.
Sweat and Tears now, it's just Stan Kenton
Oh.
again, because so many of
But
the
it
blokes
isn't that.
played with
It
Kenton.
isn't that.
Well,
Nah, it's schmaltz.
I'm afraid. No, it's not. It's just not good. I really hate to see so many musicians when you see a brass section and everything, and they all do the same sort of thing, with hackneyed old phrases every time. So much could be done with those instruments.
On stage, you're all pretty happy and more or less dig what you do. When you're recording, what happens?
It's more or less the same, really. We spend most of the time laughing all the time, anyway.
I don't know if you think this at home, but if I got some, say, latest Aussie records and put them on, could you listen and give some of your comments of what you think?
You mean Jukebox Jury?
Yeah, I mean, some of our latest groups, could you give us your comments on what you think of the music?
If you've got a buzzer, yeah. And a bell. Yeah, if you like. You see, we haven't really heard much of the Australian music at all, because I, for one, can't stand the radio going on all day, because, it seems that over here you've got to combine the good with the bad. You know what I mean?
Like AM in America.
Mm. And I can't really handle the bad.
Let's not just get a couple of records and make them up.
All right, then.
I've got some good stuff.
Keith, when he drove you back the other day, was saying he was talking about the Colleen Hewitt record, that Day by Day thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
crikey.
What about it?
We were only
Well,
talking
just
about
somebody said that it was written by Ray Davis.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think it was
basically the essence of the conversation.
We couldn't believe that Ray Davies could write anything like
It
that.
was, it's from that fucking...
Godspell, right? But somebody said that. See, that's why we were going on about it. Because somebody said that he had.
Because there's a studio down in Melbourne, and they stuck it through the business. It's supposed to be the worst produced record they'd ever heard.
Worst produced.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't really like it.
Do you find you get a lot of rumours like what I told you in the car floating around? Like, you might just comment on something and you find that...
Oh, there's so many things going around, but it's, well. What can you say? Somebody's got to talk about somebody, haven't they? It's either that or the Queen.
Family, is that group still operating?
Yeah.
Mm.
Do they enjoy any acclaim at all?
Well, yeah, really, they've been quite a very constant group. I can't really understand why they haven't done a lot better than they are doing. But then again, they're not doing badly, They're working constantly for a good amount of bread. I think it's, we didn't really know when things had taken off that they'd taken off. Because you can't really tell, you know what I mean? Because you go to one town and get a reaction, but there's 10 million other towns.
It's a mass
Yeah.
way of building and breaking.
The concert there was yesterday, there was this 14-year-old Swedish girl.
Oh,
She
no.
flew all the way from Canberra.
Well, why didn't you tell us?
Hey?
You've been telling us all these stories about all these great birds you saw.
You
There.
wouldn't believe what we did.
You would believe to give a chance.
Incredible.
What about people like Cocker and Leon Russell?
Yeah, why don't we talk about Freddie King?
Yeah, Cocker's good though. Don't dismiss him. Out.
Yeah,
Cocker's great.
it's just that Leon Russell.
Yeah, right.
No, the way it's gone about. You see, the only reason that we don't work all that often and we're a little bit not indecisive, but we totally please ourselves, is that's to us the only way that you can really enjoy it and still remain in control of your faculties, you know. And there's some people who move in like big businessmen on the scene, and they just happen to be musicians too, you know. And of the one or two that are around, you know, you've mentioned a couple.
What do you think will happen to Cocker then?
Well, goodness knows, but I really, really...
He's,
They say he's going to do something again, don't they?
Yeah, there's Chris Stainton,
Yeah.
who was the
He's in the original group.
pianist, but he also played bass unbelievably well. He, oh cheers.
Got the wrong one, mate.
He started a new band with Glenn Campbell, who was with Juicy Lucy, steel player, and apparently Cocker's joining that. And that should be really good. Should be really good.
Listen, there's an autograph book there somewhere, isn't there?
Would you like to hear the stuff now?
Is there an
Yeah.
autograph book nearby?
Let it roll, Tom. These are the La-Di-Das, one of our top groups, on their own songs.
Where is it at?
Wish I could shimmy like my sister Kate. I'm in with the in crowd and Ticket to Ride. Right. Fantastic.
Bloody fantastic.
I don't know. You must have a good lot of Have you heard of the Olympics over here? Old American vocal group. They did Western movies, yeah, and the Twist and all that sort of thing.
I've heard the version of the Twist.
Yeah.
Oh, they were on
And the
Waterfalls,
bands.
weren't they? Yeah.
No.
Top Rank.
They were on Sue and Top Rank, yeah.
Thing called Western Movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Look, it's a direct tag on that.
Well, it's all there, isn't it?
Well, they're New Zealanders, so it doesn't matter.
No, but I mean, why not? I mean, if we heard that in a club and we were all half canned, it would be the finest thing of the night, probably. But we wouldn't relate to it as a bit of individual getting together. Well, should we look at the records first and then come back in case the library shuts? Because then we can do it. If it gets a bit too heavy, we can run out.
Really?
I got one section for imports after all.
Well, can you vary it on Johnny Mitchell? Can you talk about?
Also, the English musical scene groups like Yes and Wishbone Ash and people like that. You know, what do you think of them?
I saw a good group called Home in England. I don't know whether they've had any records out over here. I think they were on CBS in England. Little sort of like, you know, Poco. It's sort of along those lines, but they were younger and their approach was an English approach. They were pretty good. But as to others, I don't really know.
Say in the more commercial field, let's say the big names today, do you have any likes or dislikes? Or you mentioned Joni Mitchell, I mean, what's your favourite track of hers and all the things she does?
Well, not really. It's really hard to sort of, you know, whittle it down to one. She's really so good, you know, in so many ways that there's so many different things that she does that you can like her for. You know.
There's a group in England about 12 months ago that looked like being fantastically big called Nice.
Mm.
You don't know much about them at all? What happened there?
What, the Nice?
That was the Lincoln Parliament.
Yeah,
or
right.
Parliament.
Did you see them when they were together at all?
No, to tell you the truth, I think I saw about 10 minutes of them once. You know, the organist Keith Emerson was the mainstay of the thing. It's what they built everything around, really. And he was a pretty good organist. But he got all these devious methods of playing the organ, standing on it and throwing knives into it to hold the octaves, you know, chunk, with a dagger. Then he'd play a little bit and then chunk with a machete, and then when he got down to a chainsaw, I think he
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Carrion, what do you think of it? Because again, stuff they're doing like Tarkus, the
okay.
Took us, did you say?
Tookers. Right up the Tookers. Incredible String Band is another kettle of fish. Nothing to do with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but I appreciate them a lot more.
We're like a breath of fresh air every time we go and see them. Really good.
Because it's more like a Renaissance, sort of a medieval travelling troupe, you know. And I suppose they must please themselves entirely what they do, but they always hold the audience in the palm of the hand. You know, they do pantomimes and all these mime troupe things. Really, really good.
like old English sort of folk music back in the days of the Jesters and stuff.
Right, yeah, but they add something to it, like a magic that not many people possess these days, you know. So
They're very big over in England.
well, they don't. It's not a thing like that at all, really. They just when they want to do something, it's similar to us, only on another plane altogether. You know, when they want to do something, they go out and do it.
and
There is-
everybody's there to see them, but there's
Yeah.
no big sort of hysteria built around
Yeah,
it.
just a sort of very nice, quiet
Yeah.
gathering.
Yeah.
Mm.
You don't need critics for shows like that.
Because they wouldn't know what they were seeing anyway, half of them, you know.
Come in from the NME.
No.
What about American bands? Have you got any sort of preferences along that line?
Did you see Grand Funk when they were over there in Ireland?
No.
No, I've never seen them.
Well, we did play with them, didn't we? Years back.
Oh yeah, that's right. Boston, wasn't it?
A lot of people, they get the most sort of severe rubbishing out of any group I've ever read about lately, about people just putting them down as being a great load of crap, you know, just
They sell so many million records, you know. So did Perry Como. But, no, they fit in somewhere along the line, don't they?
have you heard any of their stuff at all?
Yeah, I've heard bits of it.
What do you think of what you've heard?
Well, I didn't really like it too much at all. You know, I don't know. You've got to go a little bit farther than that. You know, you can't just play one thing for about half an hour. You know, but maybe they are going farther. Apparently, I don't think they're going on the road for a year or something like that. You know, they've just said, right, we're not going to do anything at all.
How about groups like Chicago? You don't like that?
Not really. No, I don't. To employ brass into something, and still possess real balls, you know, real excitement. It's a very.
Hey up.
Oh, blimey!
Oh mate.
Oh, fantastic! It's a very hard thing to. Oh shit! Look at this. It's a very hard thing to employ brass and get away with Ali Belafonte.
I think they're one of the best of those sort of groups, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, when you weigh it up, what else is around? They all sound very similar, sort of.
What about Yes?
You keep asking that, don't you?
Yeah.
They're good.
I got
Very
the
good.
hospital, I think they're a good band.
Yeah.
Have you seen them in action?
I only saw a television thing that they did a sort of
Has
an
this
hour thing.
high school
sort of in
dance?
concert thing, but it was taken on the road. And at one university, I think, that they played at. And then everyone was sort of interviewed in their home. And it was quite good. Actually, everybody said to me, oh, you're going to like Daddy Cool. And I must say, everything I've heard, I have liked.
Hmm.
You like that?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I'd like to see him on stage very much. Yeah. Can I have that Elvis EP back, please, Jack? Elvis!
So just getting to current day, what do you, what groups do you, as a group, admire most? What are the groups that you dig most, you know, modern groups, new groups today? You know.
Ones that you consider have potential that are going to be big or ones?
Trouble is, most of the groups that I really liked a lot have broken up. Like Kaleidoscope and Fairport in those particular eras. You know, Fairport with Sandy Denny was a good one.
You must
But
have
I
an
like
album.
Yes, I must admit I do like them.
Have you got that album with Sandy Denny with
Legion Leaf.
yeah, Legion Leaf,
No, it's not released out here.
isn't it? Well, that is a fine album.
Yeah.
Isn't she with Fotheringay now?
No, she's left them. She's done a solo album, and Richard Thompson, who was the guitarist with Fairport, is back with her again. You know. But I didn't really. The first album by Matthew Southern Comfort I really liked.
One
Yeah.
side of it was
Yeah,
really, really
right.
good.
Did
The
you hear
other
that?
side
Bronx
wasn't.
City, then?
No,
Yeah, there was a couple of Australian guys in that group.
I don't know. That thing seems to me that I've been floating on the same wind. What's it called? Colorado Springs Eternal, in my mind. Really, a nice album that was.
We try to sort of get the thing to relate to a more, you know, we're a top 40 radio station, so there's a lot of the stuff which is very heavy, which say the audience wouldn't be as aware of, as if we could perhaps.
Well, that doesn't
obviously
really
you are
matter,
you.
does it? Because that's not
You are
that's
you.
not our fault or
No,
your
no,
fault,
no, no,
really.
no, that's-
It's
I know, I'm hip
you're
with it.
asking us what we
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
what we like.
Well,
We
what
can't
I'm
really
asking
say
you
we
perhaps
like.
is, what do you like that is commercial?
Well, we like anything. You can't really. I don't really know where commercial begins and stops because.
The stuff that you hear played on stations or on top 40s or.
Well, this is why
Yeah,
I
what-
was started in the beginning. I try and avoid listening. You see,
Yeah.
there are people who turn out really good stuff, who have to be ignored because there isn't a palatable audience for it. Now there really is, you know. I mean, it's up to you to give them a really good cross-section of good sound, you know. I mean, this is the problem in England, really. The kids have had to go out and they've had to go on hearsay so much,
Yeah.
so that reputations are built on hearsay. You know, like people like Fairport Convention and the original Fairport Convention were really good.
Well, even Yes had trouble when they started to get anything.
Well, we had to go to
Christ.
America. We went to America because nobody would book us. Nobody would bill us as Led Zeppelin. We were the new Yardbirds, you know. And as soon as we got our first rehearsals underway and we went in the studio, we knew that we weren't the new Yardbirds, you know. But they weren't prepared. Like nobody's prepared to sort of say, fair enough, off they go, and this is a new group called Led Zeppelin.
Which
you know.
record gave you your identity?
Well, they only won
Well,
the first one. If you know the history of the group properly, we recorded it in about 30 hours or something like that, less than that. And that was 3 weeks after we'd formed. All these constructions on things like How Many More Times and things like that were Jimmy's baby, really, and they were so amazing that the other three of us were taken back by it, you know. And it was the enthusiasm put into recording that first album.
It shows it, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
You can.
You know, I mean, it just went bang, and every night was such a gem. Every night was so good to be able to get out there and play it again, you know. Because the constructions would lead to different things every night, like they do even now, you know.
Actually, what you could be saying is that you'd like to see, in a way, not maybe FM radio, but radio with perhaps a freer outlook towards everybody, a special channel that could just contribute and play records for people like you're talking about. People
I mean, I realise that you've got to keep your listeners, and a lot of the listeners are probably into to some things, but they don't really. The things that are going down on radio a lot, I've played like 4 times. Every time I put the radio on, I hear one song 4 times, and I go, oh dear, dear. You know.
Like radio can educate.
Radio can brainwash, you know.
But can
Do you think FM will ever get into England?
Yeah.
I mean, they're having hassles now with, apparently they're supposed to be getting commercial stations. Do you think it'll get
Yeah, well, that's going to be worse than what we've got now because the people who are buying that, the ones who are going to get the licenses for that are the big sort of newspaper magnates, all these people who've got the bread, so it's just going to be just as bad as it was before, really. It's not as though it's going to be any breakthrough commercial radio, it's just that there'll be more channels.
The only one doing anything, really.
Yeah, but who
Well, no,
knows
they're-
whether they'll use him, you know. I mean, John Peel really deserves the biggest pat on the back
Right.
of all of them in England.
They
You
try to sweep him under the carpet,
Yeah.
as it is, really. You know, they put him on at hours when they hope
Why,
nobody's going to
is
be
it
listening.
ratings, really? Yeah.
Oh, he's the one who virtually got everybody aware of what was going on, you know.
He was the first one to start giving people a chance. You know, people that you would never normally hear.
Yeah.
In no way at all. They might just be playing in arts labs.
Like Medicine Head and things like that.
Well, like
Well,
everybody from the word go.
Also,
really.
what's his name? The mad banjo player.
Oh yeah, what's his crumbs? What's his name of the piano? All sorts of. Well, you might as well call it like the same thing as the Incredible String Band, that moving around and giving a show. You know. Well, on his programs he'd have a bit of everything. You know, so as the people were suddenly aroused. You know, re-aroused, like the Presley arousing. You know, you suddenly found out that there was a lot more content to it than met the eye, because like Radio 1 reckoned that they were doing the country a favour, but really all they were doing was beating the music into the ground, you know.
Yeah.
Because you have to pass an audition to get to be able to play on Radio 1, and people like Terry Reid, who were really, really gifted, failed.
Yeah.
Because of the material, not because of the fact that he was a brilliant
And that's
singer.
top 40 for you.
Yeah.
And they tell you even the top 40 of your standard, because at least you play the records by the artists, however good or bad they are. But in England, you get like a copy of it, you know, by somebody in the
It's a
studio.
needle time.
Hmm?
Because you've got no needle time.
Yeah, and because they got no insight, the people who are doing it, you know, civil servants.
Listen, talking about identity, do you think, have you heard Deep Purple lately live?
No.
Do you like them?
I don't know.
What about that crit that Ian Gillan said about Zeppelin? You know, when he came out here, he said that your songs weren't strong. You were suffering from one.
Well, but what about their first LP? There's one thing on there that sounds like a direct nick of one of ours.
Which is
And plus another one that's a nick of Bombay
yeah, but
Calling.
he also
by-
said that he felt
It's
they
a
were
Beautiful Day.
influenced, up
Yeah.
until that point when they were here, they were influenced by too many things by everybody, and they didn't have an identity. And they were very worried about the fact that they didn't. They didn't sound like anybody. They
Why
didn't
do you?
sound
Why
like-
do you?
Hang on.
What an issue, eh?
Sounds like the Houses of Parliament, doesn't it? No, that's a really silly thing to say, you know. I mean, as far as we go, they can please themselves what they say, because what we write is improving by the day, you know. And I reckon that the first album can't be put down in comparison to our fourth album, because, you know, there's no comparisons really. We're the same group, and there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but
With 3 years difference.
Yeah, right. Whereas a lot of groups, and I'm not saying there, you know, but a lot of groups just get one riff and they beat it into the ground, you know. They'll play that one riff for about 10 minutes. And I suppose you can mummify the kids after a while. That seems to be what Sly Stone does, you know, but he does it really well, you know. And he does it so, I mean, they're totally amazing, you know, but it's still that sort of, that really constant turning over of one thing, you know.
What did you think of Black Knight?
All right, but haven't we heard it somewhere before? I suppose we've heard everything somewhere before. And we often sit down and say, well, I've heard that before somewhere. It was
like
okay.
free reforming up there.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Yeah, but that's another group that kept it going on the same plane, you know, and I think that's why they broke up, really. I didn't see what happens when they get back together again. It's great. What they did at the first 2 albums, we were really raving about those, but by the fourth it was very...
Well, I don't know. You see, we met them, virtually all of them, individually after the breakup, and they were all complaining about various things. But a lot of it must have been the fact that it was that same sort of it was that little bit of funk, but never taking it any farther or taking it back anywhere. You know. And that's one of the things that keeps us happy with what we do ourselves. You know.
Is it Jethro? What do you think about his stuff today?
Well, we did about 15 dates with him in America on one tour, and the whole setup of that group really amazed us. You know, the manager wouldn't let them go out with us because we were decidedly tearaways and hooligans and all that. And old Jethro would sit in his room. He wouldn't even have anything to do with the other members of the group. But every night he'd say the same quips in between numbers. And when it comes down to that, you know, he'd hold his flute up and say, how do you like my phallic tin whistle? Jim Morrison's got nothing on me and all that sort of thing. You know, but night after night after night, so that really stops you going any farther into listening to him, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a completely rehearsed gig, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
Well, it's their management, God bless him. But
well, he's you know, whoever's at the helm of the whole operation. You know, I mean, the thing is, that's the one thing with us. We don't go out there and do the same thing every night. We're constantly working in our minds. Say we're going to change it every night. So there's a change. I can't even envisage playing in a group where you'd have to do the same thing note for note perfect. I never have ever.
We're very fortunate because we haven't got a manager who can only look at it the way that people do who manufacture something, you know. I mean, he's into the changes as much as we are, you know. And he'll get off on the fact that we'll do something totally different to how we've ever done it before, you know.
What about Manfred Mann?
It's a long time ago.
The current lineup was
Current lineup.
Haven't heard anything.
Yeah, because they came out here, the first big pop show we had, it really sort of opened things up for big groups out here, was the Deep Purple Free Manfred Mann tour. They were the first of the really big shows. Then it all sort of snowballed from there. We've had the Kinks.
And what about the Who and Small Faces too then?
Oh yeah, but I'm saying, you know, that was a fair while ago, and there was a sort of a gap after all that stuff, and then the Deep Purple one was the first big one that came out after that.
That was brilliant, actually. I should imagine that Who and Small Faces.
Who was
thing.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I should imagine the Small Faces were.
They were too. Stevie.
They got booed off the stage and
Oh, but they will do. They will do. They'll get booed off the stage anywhere, the Small Faces, because they're so they were too much, really too much for people to take at odd times. You know.
Walked out and told the whole lot to get fucked, you know, and everyone went gasped, you know, and there were bootlaces and tins flying, and so he said, "Fuck you all, I'm gonna get off the stage." And walked off, and everyone went, "Oh."
Yeah, but then when they really started laying it down, when people said, "Well, please yourself, what you say and do, just get it together," they used to really. They really did that very thing, you know. And
how about the old days of Stevie Winwood and Spencer Davis group? And then
oh yeah, the Shrines.
Do you like those days?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, Winwood was a gem in those days. Well, he was for a long, long time. With Spencer, they used to start off with Ramblin' Rose, the Jerry Lee Lewis thing. And they used to do this moody intro with old Winwood clapping away, and he had a little pickup sellotaped onto his guitar and all that. They used to play in little clubs, but the atmosphere was fine, and Spencer's rhythm playing that all the time, you know. They were really fine, really good. We got to go soon anyway.
Say the first thing that comes into your head about the concert yesterday.
Warmth. It was really warm. It was Sounds like that chick who takes photographs of lay girls, doesn't it? but it was, the people were fantastic, you know. I'm only upset that we couldn't have the stage farther back and let all those people who climbed over see it properly.
Gee, that must have been an incredible experience, seeing all that.
Yeah, as the afternoon went on, it became more like it should be, you know. There were
Yeah.
people getting in little groups and all sitting down. There was a guy doing gymnastics with a pair of swimming trunks on. And, I think if we'd have stayed there about another 3 hours and had somebody else, like the Incredible String Band, on as well, we could have taken off. The whole ground could have just shot into space, you know. Had landed anywhere in the world and done a bit of good.
It was a good feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think you'll come back to the country for another tour?
Well, it depends on a few things. But I wouldn't mind at all.
Have you been happy with the audiences?
Very much so, yeah. Auckland was a bit strange. Not Auckland, what am I talking about? What was that other place we played? Begins with A. Adelaide.
Oh, Adelaide. Yeah, you said it looked like, it reminded you of an old sort of cow town in the Midwest of the States. You
Mm.
an article and go to it.
But then again it didn't. But then again it did. It was one of those, I don't know, I was at a bit of a disadvantage really. I sort of went, ooh. But there were people scrapping. There was one guy who was leading, he would stand up at different times and start clapping like that. And then if somebody said sit down, he'd go bump. You know, and the guy would be all bloody and all that, and the guy'd sit down again. And I suppose if you get somebody who you can see doing things like that, it does look slightly.
Which has been your best audience, most receptive?
Well, I reckon Melbourne, Sydney, and Perth have been all, and Auckland have been really, really fine. Because you dig them all for different things. I mean, the one in Melbourne got off for me because it started raining at different points, and everybody knew that if we stood there too long, we'd go up, we'd get electrocuted, you know. and yet when we said, well, we can't do any more, they'd say, oh, you know. We had to stop for about 10 minutes and put tarpaulin on the stage and come back on. And when we came back on, there was about a 40-mile-an-hour wind blowing. And there were people, like there was tarpaulin over the PA system, was falling down all over the guy who was controlling the PA. One minute he'd be there, and the next minute he'd be immersed in this big tent.
Yeah. We had Creedence 2 weeks before you at Randwick Racecourse. Have you ever managed to see them live at all?
Yeah.
You have. What did you think?
What did you think?
Well, I thought
Very disappointing.
disappointing. I mean, their sound was recreated exactly as a record, and you thought, well, that's good. But then they got up on there and they just sort of did it very unenthusiastically. Paul, that's no thing, you know.
It's not good.
And they just finished and said, "Zap, that's it." And it was only about, they were only on for about, wow, 3/4 of an hour.
There was a wall between them and the audience.
And there was nothing getting through. There was something stopping it, you know. The
Yeah.
audience appreciated it, but there was still a very sort of cold feeling, and everyone went away saying, "What happened?" You know.
There didn't seem to be anything extra there really when I saw them. I've never seen them before, and I just really wondered what it was going to be like.
They didn't transmit.
That's
really.
another one of those things
Exactly.
that we were talking about earlier on, just going on there and thinking about something else as he was playing, you know. You can't really do that. But somehow it was just so note for note perfect to the records, and you just wondered just exactly
If they do
What-
anything
what
else to show their business.
satisfaction he was
Mm.
getting out of it,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Well, have you heard any of their albums or anything? I guess you must have.
Yeah, well, we were all under the impression that he was a rockabilly fan, a real fiend, you
A
know.
real fanatic, a real fanatic.
And
Incredible great record collection of all these people that did sort of pinch records off like Roy Orbison, Ooby Dooby from the old Sundays. I mean, I just thought he was really going to know about these things.
Did you get to talk to the guy?
he was a bit
Yeah.
too cool, actually.
Yeah, how did you get on with him? You didn't really.
Well, they invited us up to their Mondo Bizarro, which I think is Spanish for Bizarre World or something like that. And chatting to air hostesses.
And Avis rental women.
I don't know. The whole thing is different. You know, I
And Bunny
suppose
Club.
we have a lot of good high spots in our time. You know, and like touring is really going on holiday. You know, and we like to have such a good time. I don't think we were at all pretentious or anything like that. We just go out and have a fucking wonderful time until somebody tries to stop us. You know? And there's a lot of people who don't work like that. You know, probably they might be the right way.
Creedence seemed to be very uptight when they came out here.
Mm.
They seemed to enjoy themselves much.
How many months of the year would you tour?
Depends. However many we feel like. We worked out some kind of a plan for this 12 months. Mainly, all it incorporates is going places so as we can go to Bombay and Thailand on the way.
So you still got that farm, that house out in the country. Have you very much into this ecological thing where people are really hassle off with the cities and you're growing your own vegetables?
Well, it isn't very much into a thing. It's just a realisation of a lot, you know, of the situation as it stands. You know, I don't want to be classed as an ecological freak at all, because I'm just totally aware of the escalation
It's
of...
no big thing, really. It's just common sense, isn't it, really?
Somebody caught me in Adelaide and they said, well, Jimmy, what do you think of... we have it all the time, don't we? We even had a room booked in the Auckland Hotel for Led Zeppelin, you know.
On his own.
On his own. He got his own room, this guy. So I don't know about coming back, yeah, I suppose. But ecology is, well, it's a new term, isn't it, for the desire to stay alive.
It's fantastic when you try and stop those wheels and you see what you're up against.
Yeah.
When it's obviously morally wrong what's going on, and you just see what games are being
I
played
think
behind the
about 30
scenes.
years left if they keep it going at the same rate.
You see, I've got a child, a little girl, I've got another one on the way, and you just wonder, you know, you wonder whether you should even be responsible for bringing life into the world, really, because, I mean, we're in a position where we could take the reins and say, right, hold it, all God's children have got to have a choice, you know, and we don't want it to go like this. But you start shouting out like that, and it'd give so much meat to people who talk about us, to the critics, to the press, to the radio, to the media in general, and they'd make it into a farce, you know. It'd soon be turned from what you really feel into a sort of the latest thing to talk about concerning Zeppelin, you know. So you say as little as you can about it, and you laugh a little more.
It's really strange. I'm involved in this issue at home at the moment on, you know, Loch Ness, and it's a fantastic beauty spot, and they're intending to put pylons all the way along one of the edges of it, not all the way along, but sort of, I don't know, 2 mile stretch, which is enough, and it'll be seen, and it'll set a fearful precedent because there aren't any others around there.
It'll just bugger the whole thing.
Right, yeah. It's amazing, but when you see what you're up against, and you speak to the press up there, and they say, well, was there any idea of a publicity gimmick in this film? You know,
you see, I mean, we know how you have to be, you know, and we know how everybody has to be who has to earn their bread and butter out of saying things about other people, you know. But the unfortunate thing is that the number of people in the streets here in Sydney or in anywhere else are totally aware of all these different situations, you know. And maybe they've got their spokesman, but their spokesman are shouted down, you know. I mean, and even Lennon in his crazy way has tried, you know. Well, Dylan tried as well for a long time, just at little stab points. You know, the horizon is so great, and what we have to either contend with or, you know, turn against. There's so much there that you can't, one mouth can't say it all, you know, let alone sort of brandish the standard and bring everybody under the one flag and say, well, you know, it's...
You virtually can't be honest.
Well, you can be
you
honest,
can,
but the point is...
you get shut
oh,
up.
you can afford,
really
you can afford to be, but it
Yeah,
becomes,
yeah,
they can turn it into a very
pressure on
prissy
you.
thing.
This is what I really mean. It turns against you.
Mm.
Listen, as a matter of interest, this is just by the way. What yesterday did you mean when you said something about San Francisco, except for some girl kicking a beer can or something, kicking that can over there?
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
right.
I just wondered what you meant by
Right,
that.
well, San Francisco, when I first went there, and Jimmy went a long time before me, when I first went there, I'd got so much out of people like Moby Grave and Love, and a new feeling again, you know, a revitalisation of what sent me on musically, you know, because they were singing about things, and they were singing with a drive of a kind that I really wanted to be a part of, you know. And I went there, and I was so elated when we first played the Fillmore. It was like one of the biggest experiences ever, you know, not because it was San Francisco and all the music was there, but because the people were there, you know, and the people were, I don't know, if you could have transported those people around the world, you'd have done a lot of good. But we went back, and as time goes on, and we keep going back, we find that little subculture has been divided into, like, there's a society already in there, you know, there's the different ranks, you know, and you get, like, if you haven't been around too long, nobody's going to talk to you. You walk down the street and people don't smile at each other anymore, you know.
And that was the big thing about it.
Yeah.
You could walk around and everyone would be saying hello. Didn't know who anybody else was, but it was just this thing, contact with everybody. And I thought, when I went there before with the Yardbirds, it was just a very, very small community, and this whole thing had grown, and it was fantastic. And
when
now
you see
it's
something
just-
like that, it's fine to see it grow, you know. And the unfortunate thing was it got, I don't know what happened. I suppose it was all the drug abuse and all that sort of thing. And like suddenly a guy who probably sat on top of a hill and blew a pipe now and again, and got drawn into other things until he found out that he had to get out in the street to hustle to make sure that he got those things continually.
Yeah.
And then when man is revealed as the animal that he is, he forgets all the beauty that he created, you know. And there was a good feeling there that I tried to relate it to, you know. But I tried to say that when you go back there now, it's another story.
Yeah.
And just as I said that, some chick threw something right into the crowd, you know.
Yeah.
Like a twisted beer can went, meow. And probably whoever was listening to me just got a bump on the head and carried on listening, you know.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Mm.
If everybody had turned around quick enough, which I hoped would have happened, they'd have still seen our arm up like that.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people do it and you don't see them.
Yeah, there was like a guy at one of the Stones concerts, he chucked an egg at Jagger, and he just happened to catch who it was, you know. And it was really incredible. He shook his American and he said, he said, you want to throw eggs at me? He said, come backstage, I'll throw a bloody bucket at you. And everyone went zap out of this poor guy, you know. Not poor guy, but he shouldn't have done it, but, you know. They saw him, he thought he'd get away with it, and he just got caught in the mid-act of the egg leaving the hand. It was really, you know.
Yeah, but what is all that about?
Oh, just some.
I know,
just,
but I know,
People
but
are
I know.
really
But
hung up, isn't it?
It's probably just some guy who think, oh, you know, you get them at every concert. You get one little pile of people.
But they should not be there, you know.
But yeah,
They should not be there at all, you know.
that's what you've got to fight against, right? You know, the whole.
Well, that's what the people who
That's
come
what-
have got to
yeah.
fight against.
It's up to them to get it together. I mean, every concert that we've had, apart from yesterday, it wasn't quite so apparent because the Sydney audience seemed to have it really together. Actually, the whole sort of thing between them, it was really disciplined. All this sort of running across, you know, when it started to get when they started to run towards the grass, I could see all the police sort of going, well, wait a minute, what's going to happen here? And they were really cool about it, and the whole thing just mellowed down into a really good feeling. But the one problem that we have come across, when the audience haven't got it together amongst themselves, is this standing up and sitting down. The people who want to stand up and the people who want to sit down. And you get all these people shouting out, sit down, sit down. You know, it just gets too much, especially when you're doing acoustic numbers.
But you see, we spoke to the chief of police beforehand, and his Hoppo, and I tell you, those two guys were as cool as anybody who was sitting down.
Yeah.
Because they realised the situation, they realised that you can aggravate something by sending in an element that is now, you know, I mean, if you send the police in, it's unfortunately, you're asking for trouble, you know, because like everybody's got a bad name, both sides of the fence to each other, you know. And this guy realised that the stage should have been pulled back another 50 yards before the day begun, right? And that if the people, they expected that many people, then these people should have been accommodated, you know. Otherwise, you do get trouble because people are jumping out the stands and running across. I thought this is going to be another Perth, you know, and we're going to have to flee quickly with ripped garments. But no, they didn't do that, see, and that was where they really pulled it out for me. Because as soon as they sat down and went, right, that was when the concert started, you know. And we dug them as much as they dug us, I think.
Awesome. It was a magnificent concert.
Have you got another album ready to go after 4?
Won't tell you.
Righto, next question.
You were saying in an interview that you use all those symbols to stuff up the mass media just so they just couldn't label it. That was just the premise behind using all the symbols you had for the fourth album.
Well, it wasn't just that, but that certainly came
One of
into
the
it. You
reasons.
know, that as soon as you saw them going, well, yes, well, let's have more information on the title, please, and all this sort of thing. Then you realise there was more afoot. This
But those symbols
certainly
carry a
plunged
bit of
them into
weight.
chaos. Sure, they did.
You know, don't worry.
Can you explain some of those symbols? Sure.
Well, I don't know. To take another hour. Well, I wanted to see us on the telly. It's too late now. Have you got a TV here?
The newsroom, yeah. My basement, yeah. But,
Why don't we cut it off now and come back after?
Well, we probably missed it, haven't we?
6:30.
Oh, is it?
Right.
Oh, let's go and watch that.
Right. Over and Roger and out for a
Another
bit.
cup of tea, go down really well.
Yeah, a cup of tea and we'll stay the night.
You were saying about American Pie before, you know, about the record itself, about listening to the words. Do you think it's all about the American rock scene and Buddy Holly?
Oh no, well it's about the whole lot by the sound of it, and that includes the English. You know, about how it began. Did you write the Book of Love? I mean, when you start up a song like that, then you end up where the music thing is now on the second side. I think can't we play both sides of it, one after another?
I've got the
Because I'm sure that what you do is on a top 40 station or whatever this is, you're going to play the one side, you know.
Yeah.
But the story is.
But we need to listen to the others.
But the story is really, you know.
Yeah. I think because it's such a sort of, that chorus is so catchy and you relate it to other sorts of things that you've heard before like that, you bypass the lyrics. I must admit I did first time. I dismissed the whole thing
When
out
you
of
sing-
hand. When I listened to the lyrics properly, it was like a big revelation of what it was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd really like to put that into the thing, just because of the fact that a lot of people would just say, "Oh, there it goes," until they.
You probably
That reference to American Pie.
No, well, it's nothing to do with American Pie. It's just
Oh, the lyrics in general.
yeah.
Mm.
on that.
Do you feel that a lot of people are right? A lot of people sort of say that in most, you can do a lot of gigs today and you get up and a whole lot of people will say, yeah, really great set, man. And you think to yourself, well, I played shit ass and I just con them, because a lot of people try and say, yeah, you really sounded great.
Yeah, you don't
never
think
con
you've
them.
conned them. You just feel really cheated that you know that they thought it was good. Well, you know when people say, yeah, great man, you know they're just saying it because they want to talk to you for about a quarter of an hour. Some people really mean it and they've missed it. You know, they've missed the thing that you could have been a bit better, really. And you just feel annoyed that you couldn't play better. I always get that every night anyway.
And I do most of the time. But a lot of it is to do with the audience, because you can be playing incredibly well, you know, and if the audience ain't quite how you like it, you know, and you become a specialist as they are, or in fact twice as specialist as they are, because you're dealing with like tens of thousands of people in en masse, you know, in one go. So to get that good flowing, that exchange of feeling, like we give them something, they give it back, and so we give them more and they give back more. Until you
rapport just keeps building.
Have you ever considered cutting a live album?
I wouldn't mind, actually. It's just catching it, you know. Some nights are out of this world, you know, that we'd be totally happy with. And you can bet £1 to a penny there's not a recording machine in sight, except for some bootlegger with a mic on a broomstick, you know. Who's saying they're making a lot of bread will make this sound bad, so they're swinging the broomstick round in here.
Have you had any of your stuff that's been known to be bootleg selling pretty well in the States? Have you had any?
Yeah.
This must really, I suppose, shit you off.
Oh, well, because it's a terrible reproduction, you know. Live on Blueberry Hill was dire. You know.
And especially when that one came out, it was at the heyday of bootlegs, and bootlegs were costing about double the price of a legitimate LP, which seemed totally unfair as they didn't have any overheads like a proper record company. And the quality was bad. You know, they should have been at least half price, shouldn't they? That would have justified bootlegs in some way or shape or form, but as it is, they're still more expensive, I think, in England. Just a little bit more, but at that time they were double. And for a double LP, which is what that was, it was costing a lot of money.
But we gladly rush out, and I know Jimmy and
Yeah,
I
we
rushed out to get Dylan bootlegs. Quick, let's get in there, you know. And we go in, and the guys would sort of go totally pale because they got ours just next to the Dylan bootlegs, you know. So I mean, we've got to own up.
What was the reaction when you saw your first bootleg just lying on the shelf there?
I remember I put it on, and I was so disgusted at the sound that I threw it in the river. Then I tried to get another one from somewhere.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to On the Air.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. I tell you what I would like to hear in the middle of it all. Got anything by Dion? Any of the old stuff?
You just...
Which one?
Something like The Wanderer or The Majestic.
Ruby
Yeah,
Baby,
Ruby
yeah, that's a
Baby,
good one.
Yeah, because these people.
Have you got My Girl the Month of May? Which was a Dion they reformed about 66.
Oh please, yeah. If you got an album by
you heard
him-
that?
No,
My Girl
I
the
haven't.
Month of May.
No.
It's great. They reformed and they just did this
When
one
they
record.
had that one album when they reformed, and they had this.
That's right. It is
in
an
a
LP.
building or something,
It is
and
an
the bell was
LP.
going back
That's
like
right.
that,
My
yeah.
Girl the Month of May is a single that
Yeah,
I've got.
yeah.
It's good.
He had a well, he's still got a superb voice. We saw him in New York.
Funnily enough, when you put on that Aztecs thing, it reminded me of some of the singles that he started to put out. Hoochie Coochie Man and all those sort
Yeah,
of
I remember
things. You know,
those,
it
yeah.
reminded me of that. Although he
had
was
a
doing it
great version of
acoustic, it
Memphis,
was.
not Memphis, or one of the old Chuck Berry songs. You know, fantastic.
Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, Johnny Be Good.
That was
Yeah.
unreal. Great feeling.
He's got a lovely voice. He flows around the place like anything, you know.
He's just doing acoustic stuff now.
Yes, we saw him, didn't we?
Yeah.
What's his act like now? Just sort of made like Abraham Martin and John stuff.
Well, I should imagine it's changed yet again, because I heard a track in England just before we came away, which was a live album, or a cut off an album which was live, and I think it was Ruby Baby or something like that. It was one of those things anyway, but it was so fine, because despite it being an acoustic, well, it's like I was trying to say about Friends being as heavy as Whole Lot of Love, you know. It was really, really, really good. You know.
He came out here a long time ago, Dion, you know, and a friend of mine saw him, you know, sort of he's about 29 now, 30, and he saw him when he came out, you know, and he reckons it was an incredible thing on stage, you know, he had the big sort of baggy pants, the whole bit, you know, and the Belmonts were there.
Excuse me, Dave. I wonder if the guys might want to hear just the opening part of the special.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's on there.
And it's, really is going to be a good setup when they get them working.
Yeah.
Got around
Get their thoughts on Golden.
Yeah, of course. This next one coming up.
It sounds like we're being a bit cynical, but the point is we aim.
No, we
you
was,
know.
we really want.
Because I mean, there was a group we saw last night, Chain.
Yeah.
Is it? And I mean, if you played something by them, it might be the worst thing they'd ever done, but it would be better than what we'd heard so far, because they were pretty good.
Where'd you catch them at? Where'd you see them?
I'll tell you what, that last number, that sounded a bit like something reminiscent of the very early Marmalade things, didn't it?
Yeah, right.
But
yeah.
they didn't have that, even though the Marmalade voice.
Yeah, Dean
Bluebird
Ford
was good, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, they were an
You
amazing
know.
group. They had a lot
And I
of
would lump that in
books
with
thrown
that
at
sort
them.
of thing, really.
But they pulled out of it, you know. And as soon as they pulled out of it, everybody by that time said, "Oh, we don't want to know about them," you know. But they pulled out and started doing good things, you know. Don't know whether you heard any of the recent things.
But anyone know?
Not Oobla Dee Oobla Da. but-
No, we're talking about
Rainbow,
post
stuff like that.
Doobly-Dee.
Yeah.
How long ago were they edited?
Is it Rainbow?
Yeah,
Rainbow
Yeah.
It's Rainbow.
Mm.
Yeah, that's one of the good ones.
Yeah. Listen, this next one's by Alison McCallum. She's a child. She's about 24 years old. It's a band and young thing called Superman.
Hmm.
Yeah, we had this in the car, didn't we? On the way
Yeah.
out?
It's going to be one of those that are going to be played a lot, isn't it? It's not bad at all. But if it's written by the people who wrote the one before, that shows that they're well on the way to being pretty versatile. Anyway, they've just got to take it up a grade, haven't they?
Yeah, that's by Napier, is it?
Yeah, he
produced
produced
the
it.
records.
Mr. Napier. Yeah.
How'd you feel about the Chicks?
He had something to do with the Yardbirds once.
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't imagine she thinks like that all the time,
Something black.
you know. But it'd be interesting to hear. See, I'm so used to making assessments. I'm listening to an album now.
Yeah, rather sing.
Yeah. Then you get an idea of, you know, when somebody says, "What do you think of the voice?" You can only. The chick's got to sing it like that because it's that kind of a song, isn't it? You know, you've got to really lay it out.
She's got a really ballsy voice. She sings a lot of blues stuff and.
She's scratchy on stage.
Crutchy. Can't be bad. Perhaps you'd like to come and do a duet.
What do you think of the production on that track?
Jimmy's just commented on that.
Simon Napier Brody's had something to do with the Yardbirds.
He's not got anything to do with that as well.
If he's listening, I bet he's sweating down the other end. Because he knows what I ought to be saying.
I see. Blip.
Is he very? Is he doing well over here then?
That's his first production. Isn't it?
I think he charges all around the world, just popping in as guest producer for movies.
Let's hope he don't go to India.
I'm sure
Young Billy Thorpe
Play the Thorpe live track, yeah. Never play Spectrum. How'd you feel about that?
I didn't really feel much at all, actually.
It was a bit distorted, so, but I mean, nevertheless, it's got a lot of balls, you know.
That's what he's like most of the time. He just gets on plays all and rock stuff and blues stuff. He's very loud. Yeah.
It's loud, yeah.
He's going to London, pretty shortly, with a band.
I don't go to London very much.
How would you rate his chances on hearing that in London now? Current things happening in London?
Well, there's a bloke called Roy Young over there. Roy Young band, he's been going for years and years, and he's really, I mean, when it comes to really hard, basic slamming it out, you know, then he is really, really, really the best. You know, I mean, a lot of rock and roll revival and people who are doing things like that, but he's one guy who's been doing it all the time. You know.
Yeah, he was there right at the very early beginning when Jack Good was doing those rock shows.
Oh,
I
sure,
don't know
he
whether you
was,
know about those, but
yeah.
they were really good. And he's just done a version of Rag Mama Rag. It's like Little Richard, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he's
You know,
really
you've got
fine.
some competition when you're just banging out 12-bar bluesies, really. But still, I mean, what are their records like, the singles and things? They don't just revive old rock, do they?
Have you got his
Don't
new
feel
single?
like that
Hang on.
song. Which
Can you just put that one on that we passed
Yeah.
in there? Because there's a record that come from England by a bloke who used to be with the Tornadoes, and it summed up about 1963, I suppose, in England, and it was quite atmospheric. I mean, we're all going to have a little giggle, but at the same time, it's pretty good.
All right. What kind of nostalgia does that bring back to you?
It was an era when I used to stand with open mouth agog watching these artists But there was a guy called Mike Berry as well who didn't really do much at all, but the recording sound was pretty
Yeah, a
amazing.
thing called The Death of Buddy Holly.
The tribute to Buddy Holly, yeah. Snow was snowing.
Same recording
That's from
plant as well.
Yeah.
RGM.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Meek.
Yeah, they did. There was some amazing sounds on that RGM thing. Michael Cox was a bloke who did. What was that hit he had? Angela Jones, you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Doo-doo-doo.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
he did Sweet Little 16, the Chuck Berry thing, and the guitar solo was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he was
wasn't
like the sort of
Yeah.
Rick Nelson, really, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In his sort of vocal style.
So really, it just represents an era. It's not particularly brilliant because the American counterparts were really lashing it out at the time. Frankie Ford, well, not exactly the same time,